So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and my interest in public health occurred when I read a book called Medical Epidemiologists, and it had a lot of different stories about people, specifically doctors, just trying to figure out the causes of certain diseases. So I read that book and I was fascinated at the idea of an epidemiologist and what they do. And I thought, I want to do that. So that's when I started to inquire more about epidemiology. And that's how I learned about the entire field of public health. Being from a Hispanic country, the collective is a very important part of our culture. And for me, public health resonated with that experience of the collective and working at the collective level. I actually started my education in science. So I have a bachelor's of science. And as I was going through the bachelor's of science, there were certain things that I really was very interested in. One of the things that I liked was environmental sciences. So I took a lot of environmental courses or courses of environmental sciences. And the other part that I was really fascinated was with computers. And believe it or not, at that time, we still had to go ahead and write these little cards that we actually had to go and bring to the computer center. And we had to wait on the hallway for as long as it took for them to get through, for them to give us the input. So I was fascinated at computers and at coding. So I finished my bachelor's degree, and then I was kind of thinking, maybe I need to move into computer science. And that's when I came across this book called Medical Detectives that was so useful for me, because I realized that I actually could put together my interest in coding with my interest in environmental sciences and come up with something out of it that would actually satisfy my own interests. And then I decided, why not get a master's in epidemiology? And that's how I started to walk that path of, I can put together environmental sciences and coding and epidemiology and come up with a degree that would actually let me study how environmental contaminants have an impact on human health. Then that's how I started to work on coding using those softwares that are more common for the field of public health, including SAS and SPSS. And, that has evolved over time. But when I was doing the master's, those were the most important one to learn to work with. As I was doing my master's, I decided that I wanted to do a thesis on a problem that was happening in Puerto Rico with people drinking water that was contaminated with VOCs, volatile organic compounds. And at that point, I signed in to go to CDC for an internship with the Association of Schools of Public Health. And that was a great opportunity because it was an internship at the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. And all they had there were environmental epidemiologists. Well, not all of it, but that was my first real exposure to an environmental epidemiologist. And I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. So it was really rewarding to be there for that summer, because then I went back to finish my master's, and I went back to finish the thesis, and I knew exactly what I had to do. And I think that students should actually, think about two things when you're doing your education. One of them is engaging with the people that can give you information and that can get to know you, because it's important that people get to know you and can actually talk about you when you're looking for references. And then also that you have to come up with your own plan. And I think that that's also another part that is really important. Just, don't go through the loops only or through the hoops only. Just kind of make sure that you think about what you want to do and find the ways that you're going to do it. I told people, I want to do this project. I told professors when I was in a master's program, I want to do this project. So I ended up finally, after asking a whole lot, I found someone who would like mentor me as I finished the project. So you have to stick to what you want to do. Obviously, try to make it work. I actually got hired by the ATSER to work with them after I finished the master's degree. So I knew that I wanted to do a PhD, but I also wanted to get some real exposure on environmental epidemiology because it seemed fascinating to me, but it really is also a hard area of work to work with because, working at the time, trying to understand how environmental exposures could actually have an impact on human health. There was so little known at the time, and there was so much work to do, and there was so much pushback in the other hand. It's not a very glamorous job. You do it because you have the feel for it, and that is important for society. So I really wanted to have a real sense of what the field was going to be like. And I decided that working was the best way to go. So I went to work with the US federal government as an entry-level epidemiologist, and I stayed there for about 5 years. So I felt that after 5 years, I have learned. The University of Puerto Rico at the time did not have a PhD in epidemiology, so I decided that I had to stay in the United States. So I went to Johns Hopkins University, and now it's Bloomberg School of Public Health, and I actually got my PhD then. So they had a program on environmental epidemiology that was really small. I actually had access to really great environmental epidemiologists in the university at Hopkins, and my dissertation project was on air pollution and pregnancy outcomes. I became interested in the idea of how, air pollution could actually have an impact on pregnancy outcomes. And that was something that had been little studied. And it ended up really being a great project for me personally. And also it ended up being a really nice contribution. And then I ended up having really nice publications that were actually very consequential to the field. I became aware of the ISEE while I was working on the federal government. So at that time, ISEE was actually starting. Hopefully I'm not telling you my age, but ISEE was actually starting. So I was just starting my career as an environmental epidemiology just when the ISEE had like its second or third annual meeting. So I was able to participate in one of those. And I remember how nervous I was that I was talking to all these expert epidemiologists, environmental epidemiologists, and I was there with my little paper. So for me, the society is something that has always been in the background of my professional career. And it has always been a very important place for me to engage and stay in touch with other folks that were from, who started with me at the same time, to learn from their work, to share my work, and to always keep abreast of what is going on in the field. I am very thankful for the society because this really was a place of congregating. And at that time, there were not really that many environmental epidemiologists. There were not even that many epidemiologists to begin with. So there were not that many environmental epidemiologists. So I really am thankful of the efforts and support. I have always been a part of the annual meetings. After I finished my PhD, I went to work in South America. So I worked with the Pan-American Health Organization as a regional advisor. And part of that job, one of my duties was really to promote the field of environmental epidemiology. So at that point, I came in contact with Nelson Gouveia, who is actually another person. He's one of my peers from, I think we gave our first presentation together on the same session a long time ago. And then I came across Nelson again, and then I was like, okay. And then we were asked to actually be the chairs for the chapter. This may have been like the year 2000, so it's been a while. So in the year 2000, and when I landed on this job in South America, reconnected with Nelson, and then we actually both were asked to be the chairs. So we co-chair the chapter for, I think, about 4 years, pretty much. Historically speaking, Nelson has been really one of the stalwarts of the society in South America and basically Latin American and the Caribbean, which is really the chapter covers the Latin American and the Caribbean countries. And I came back to the United States, but I've always been connected with them. So I had the opportunity to travel to the different countries as part of my job. So when that happened, I also tried to meet with the different peers who were from the society. Nowadays, we have a whole lot of other opportunities of connection, of exchanging information, and of collaborating that have occurred as a result of all the technology that is available for communicating. And it's amazing how the technology has changed so quickly. You know, the Latin American and Caribbean region is a broad region with many countries and different type of issues in each country and environmental issues that trigger different types of research. I welcome very much the idea of us as an organization makes it an example of the fact that we need to actually be more green, reduce emissions, and promote that type of activities and meetings online. I think that at the local level, there's also a lot of power, and it's important that the chapters continue that process of growing. So Nelson and I were really kind of the ones who started the idea of creating that vision for the region. Then the next generation, when Ana Maria Mora came, she was fantastic, and she coordinated with PAHO also. So the work of PAHO as a partner in the region through the years is also important to mention, because with PAHO and the new technology, she was able to further that connections that Nelson and I created into a structure that is working really nicely. And now we have a new group of folks that are taking over the work of Ana Maria, and they are getting it to the next level, which is to be able to get folks to work more locally. Even though Latin American and the Caribbean is such a big region with so many different issues in the different countries that, you know, scientists work with, there's still a certain level of family for me. So I still see folks in the meetings or in the conference calls or online events that are folks that I met in 2000 when I was living there and working for the chapter. So one of the really fantastic things about the International Society for Environmental Epidemiology is that it is a group of people who are very steady. So once they join, they stay, and they have been there for a very long time. So I think it's great, because at the end of the day, we are like family, really. And it happens at the chapter level, but it also happens at the larger level. So you always are gonna know what the names of the people are, the faces, who they are, what they do. And there's a place where I think everybody is welcome and feel comfortable. And I think that that's also one part of the organization that makes it one that you want to continue to come back to. So that's why I have been a member for so long time, and being a real international organization as a Hispanic, as a person from the Caribbean, as a person who has actually worked with the chapter in Latin America and the Caribbean. I know that we have been able to feel part of the whole. So yes, you know, we have a lot of members from the United States, and we have a lot of members from Europe. But I think that this is an organization where everyone is welcome and everyone is heard.